Andre. To a wrestling fan, there exists a great majesty in that very name. To remember Andre the Giant is to recall an individual for whom mere explanation cannot possibly apply, and yet the most vivid and imaginative description also fails him. In an industry where mythology and hyperbole are as common as basic elements, Andre the Giant could be done justice by neither. The measurement of Andre's career didn't come from subjective match ratings by unimpressive mortals, but rather the myth-making of those around him. Promoters embellished Andre's already impressive height and weight to make him seem as towering as an unfathomable creature. The people who met him perhaps exaggerated his size when regaling their experience to friends, but fans who watched him wrestle could recount through rose-colored lens the destruction he'd cause against 2, 3, or even 4 men, regaled with the giddy voice of someone who perhaps willfully forgets that it's all a work. Andre captured our imaginations the same way that his mere existence opened our astonished eyes. In fact, the latter was the cause of the former. His life was an excuse for us to gawk, to be mesmerized, to weave his reality with our imaginative fiction. The stories told about Andre's life are incomprehensible if you've never laid eyes on him, and yet are possibly boosted with just enough aggrandizing to enhance his otherworldly status. Even without the extra varnish, Andre was plenty impressive. Although he passed away 25 years ago, his legend lives on. His stories passed on as if he were a noble hero of regional folklore. The difference is that Andre was real, and even in death continues to be real. I'm Sam from Cultaholic.com, and here are 10 things you didn't know about Andre the Giant. Join us! Number 10, he was one big kid. It should come as no surprise that Andre didn't grow up as a normal-sized child, only to hit some sort of freak growth spurt on his 19th birthday. The man who would one day be billed as over 7 feet tall had early indicators that he was going to wind up larger than average-sized. Reports claim that by the time Andre was 12 years old, he was already 6 foot 3 inches tall and weighed well over 200 pounds. His abnormal growth was caused by a condition known as acromegaly, in which the pituitary gland produces excess growth hormone. This condition also accounts for Andre's giant hands and feet, as well as the widening of Andre's face and the deepening of his voice. Fellow giants, the Big Show and the Great Khali, both suffered from the same condition, but each had corrective surgery to address the problem. Andre, meanwhile, reportedly refused the surgery. Current NXT performer Lars Sullivan also reportedly has the condition, and his very slight resemblance to Andre the Giant. Number 9, Beckett. Even as a youth, Andre's size proved problematic. Transport could be difficult, and it's been said that Andre couldn't take the bus to school because he didn't fit into the vehicle. And that's when a neighbor stepped in to help get little Andre to his studies. That neighbor was none other than Samuel Beckett, a very famous Irish-born playwright and novelist who had built a cottage in France with the help of Andre's father Boris. Beckett's prolific works, such as Waiting for Godot, made him an eventual winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature, earning the prestigious award in 1969. Before then, Beckett was voluntarily Andre's personal driver, with some suggesting that it was his way of thanking Andre's father for helping build his home. Beckett would take Andre to school each morning in a truck that could accommodate the future wrestler's size. Andre would later recall that most of the conversations he and Beckett shared on those rides were about the sport of cricket. Beckett sadly died in December 1989 at the age of 83, little more than 3 years before Andre's eventual passing. Number 8, too big for duty. Andre the Giant could have been the scariest mercenary that has ever walked this planet. Any country would relish the idea of having a certifiable beastman in their reserves to be deployed at the enemy's doorstep with a primal look in his eye. His tooth-gnashing snarl would be enough to make the opposition's weaponry defecate their projectiles out of fear. In 1965, at age 18 or 19, Andre received a draft notice for France's peacetime army. The thought of Andre going through basic training is hard to fathom, as is the fact that some Sergeant Hartman type barking out insults and demeaning nicknames in Andre's face would probably need a step stool to achieve that. But nonetheless, it wasn't to be. As had already been a theme in his life, Andre's immensity voided the draft notice. There were no shoes big enough, nor bunks big enough to accommodate his size. And it's probably just as well, because an Andre the Giant combat boot would probably weigh the same amount as a small fridge. Number 7, Andre the Giant, defensive lineman? Forget fatigues and boots, could you imagine Andre in shoulder pads and studs? Or better yet, a football helmet corking his wild mane of hair? If former Washington Redskins head coach George Allen had his way, Andre would have been doing just that in 1975. Just a couple of years removed from a Super Bowl loss, Allen was looking to beef up his defense, quite literally. He coveted a beastly man who would stifle the offense's running game and could block field goals by just standing in place and raising his arms. Allen's personal director, Tim Temerario, looked to the wrestling Goliath to see if there would be any interest. While it amounted to little more than a publicity stunt, Andre did did meet with the Redskins alongside Vince McMahon. There was even a press conference to herald the story. Training Andre to play a new sport would take lots of work, but it was a moot point anyhow. Andre made too much money as a wrestler to give up the business, and nothing more came of a potential NFL run. Number 6. Financial records. Understandably, Andre very quickly became an in-demand attraction in professional wrestling, with promoters looking to book the Star Monster on their cards. With the kind of popularity that Andre was enjoying, he could afford to put a hefty price tag on his services. This allowed Andre to amass some considerable wealth, even before reaching the age of 30. So great was Andre's wrestling income that the Guinness Book of Records acknowledged him in their 1974 edition. According to Guinness, the $400,000 that Andre earned that year made him the highest paid wrestler in the world. Though that might seem like a rather paltry sum, that $400,000 equates to roughly $2 million in 2018 terms after accounting for inflation. Since then, the likes of Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, Steve Austin, and others have trampled even the adjusted number. Still, $400,000 a year is a staggering amount for a wrestler that wasn't exclusive to just one territory. Before he became exclusive to McMahon's WWE, Andre made his money as a globe-trotting Leviathan, a highly valued mercenary. Number 5, he could move cars. And no, not in the Braun Strowman manner of flipping vehicles with the help of some off-camera winches or pulleys either. Andre the Giant's strength was such that he possessed the physical ability to move cars the same way a mere mortal could move around dining room chairs. With his inhuman strength, Andre liked to prank some of his friends late at night by physically pushing their cars into impossibly tight spaces, or even spinning them round so that they were facing the other way. This would be especially bewildering in circumstances where his buddies had been drinking, and were then left to wonder why in the hell they parked the way they did. But that's not even Andre's most impressive vehicle-related story. One tale, possibly apocryphal but still totally awesome, is that he once flipped over a car with 4 men inside of it. The story goes the 4 men had harassed Andre, and his revenge was to calmly overturn the vehicle like an angry poker player flipping a table. Number 4, serious back problems. Outside of wrestling, Andre is perhaps known for his charming turn as Fezzik, the lovable yet mighty brute in the 1987 film The Princess Bride. Even if someone's never seen an Andre match, chances are they've seen him in Bride, chucking rocks, smashing doors, and gleefully rhyming the sentences of others. While Andre was cast to match the enormity and might of the Fezzik character, the truth was that Andre was anything but strong during the filming of the movie. Just past his 40th birthday, and Andre's physical decline had already begun. Severe back issues made it impossible for him to even lift heavy items. One prime example of needing to compensate for Andre's health came during a scene in which Robin Wright, as Princess Buttercup, jumped from a window. Fezzik caught her, but Andre needed a little help. Thus, Wright had to be fitted with wires that could lower her into Andre, suspending her just enough in the vicinity of his grasp. Number 3, how much do we give him? In 1986, McMahon directly appealed to Andre in order to convince him to perform at WrestleMania 3, but Andre was far from committal. His general health was going south, particularly his back. Desperate to get Andre to headline the monumental card slated for the Pontiac Silverdome, McMahon offered to pay for Andre to have back surgery and would even let him rehabilitate in his home. The surgery itself was apparently something else, as the team of doctors had understandably never worked on somebody the size of Andre before. Some versions of the story claim that special tools had to be assembled for the procedure, but the greater concern was the anesthesia. How much do you give somebody that size? With no guidelines for somebody of Andre's mass, it was tricky. Too little and he might wake up mid-surgery, while too much could be fatal. To rectify this, the doctors consulted with Andre and used his unmatched drinking prowess as a guideline. "It usually takes 2 liters of vodka just to make me feel warm inside," he cracked to the surgical team. Ultimately, the procedure was done, with Andre managing to new standards even in situations such as that. Number 2, WrestleMania 3, a drinking guide. Andre's most legendary moment as a wrestler is undoubtedly that WrestleMania 3 main event, in which he and Hulk Hogan clashed over the WWE Championship in a battle of immortals. It begs the question as to what's more legendary, that match or the stories of Andre's drinking feats. While the 116 beers in one sitting campfire tales get passed around with as much recall as his wrestling career, the match with Hogan combines the two. According to various sources, Andre drank a whopping 14 bottles of wine prior to making his entrance to wrestle Hulk. For anyone else, that ring cart driver would have doubled as a designated driver. That is, if anyone else could even be conscious after such a binge. For the match, Andre wore a back brace that was tucked into his relatively new singlet. He also reportedly had numbness below his knees, stemming from what was becoming his normal physical state. He made it through the 12-minute match, enduring the most legendary body slam of all time en route, all while gallons of wine sloshed throughout his body. And number 1, solo singles title. Although he continued to wrestle sporadically into 1992, the last hurrah of Andre's career came 4 years earlier. In February 1988, before the largest TV audience for professional wrestling in American history, 33 million viewers, Andre defeated Hogan for the WWE Championship in controversial fashion. He surrendered the belt to Ted DiBiase just moments later as part of a villainous conspiracy, but is still recognized today as an official champion. And somewhat incredibly, it was the only time in Andre's career that he would hold singles gold. Throughout his 3 decades in the business, any other instance of Andre being a champion came in tag teams, whether it was with Haku as the Colossal Connection or territorial belts with Dusty Rhodes, among other wrestlers. Really, Andre didn't need a belt to be over with the crowds, and his status as a traveling attraction made putting gold on him moot anyway. Being a tag team champion was fine, because when they lose the belt, it wouldn't be Andre getting pinned. For that reason, making Andre a singles champion was pointless, unless he was just going to vacate it. And even then, Andre's stature put him above gold anyway. Belts were for lesser men that needed physical honors. Andre the Giant was just a cut above. And that's our list. I've been Sam from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me on Twitter here. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic. If you like what we do here at Cultaholic, you can check out our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And don't ever forget to hit subscribe and join us.